Bonjour, je suis not manly, ici le voyage d'espace je ne sais quoi, and finally, we have come back to the original series and we have made it to Huygen, the third moon of Lindor. Over 1,300 kilometers across, a mere 26 microkerbins, and a surface gravity that's close to the stock moon at 1.5 Gs, but a ridiculous atmosphere at 180 kilometers up. One day is 184 hours. It is tidally locked with Lindor, and has a very mild inclination, but not zero. As is the case for all of Lindor's moons. Getting out here from Krell takes only about 700 meters per second, with another 500 to capture, and well, you could land on basically anything with aerodynamics. You could use parachutes or not if you wish. This is Lindor's answer to Lathe. You can fly with minimal wings or even EVA packs because of the light gravity, and explodium-breathing engines will work out here, and we'll give a good demonstration of that in a bit. But that thick atmosphere is very deceptive. Launches from the surface require patience, but surface pressure is low enough that stock engines should work out here. When we last left our heroes Chris, Roberta Lynn, and Jenny-Ann McKerman, they were in orbit above Aden after a very profitable visit to the surface. We finally got our surface issues sorted out here. The current version of Copernicus Bleeding Edge seems to at least partially address the gear sinking into the ground and losing traction. If I run into that, all I gotta do is quick save, walk away for a while, and then come back, and it seems to work better. Here's a gorgeous shot of Aden on the way out. Look at that. All of that rough surface and craters, and Lindor in the background. Beauty. This is Huygen, the je ne sais quoi answer to Saturn's moon of Titan. Very, very thick atmosphere, lots of methane on the surface, in the crust, in methane oceans, and methane in the air. Lots of that. And there we go. We get some basic high space science, we take a look around. We're trying to see if we can get some gravioli science while we're high up, but we only get a few biomes, being on an equatorial plane that we are on. This atmosphere is deceptively thick. Make sure you stay above 200k and enjoy those blue sunsets. And there we go. Now we have to start disassembling our craft. The Huygen lander rover is in between all of that mess there, so we'll detach that and Roberta will push it away just a bit. I think we just use the RCS to kind of shove it away. There we go. Then Jenny-Ann will dock the Talos rover back up and we'll be able to put the main mission craft back together. This will be the first time we are shedding mass in the Lindor mission. Docking is not a problem when you have the RGS probe cores, just target to target and a little bit of RCS thruster and you should be good to go. Now I've got these crafts kind of sitting upside down to each other to try to even out the center of mass so that Chris has an easier time controlling this when we head out to Rija in the next episode. And then we'll get Jenny-Ann out here. She'll be heading down to the surface, joining Roberta Lynn on the surface of Huygen. We'll use that service module to deorbit this craft, and then we'll transfer some of the excess oxidizer from there into one of the oxidizer tanks to take full advantage of those explodium-breathing engines. We'll set periapsis to about 100 kilometers up. The air will be more than thick enough to let the 10-meter heat shield slow us down. In fact, it may have even been overkill for this descent. There we go. We'll top up our outside tanks, and we'll be able to use that fuel to get back up to low Huygen orbit. Considering how low it is, a good 200 kilometers up. And here we go. We've just entered the edge of the atmosphere. We'll try to get some upper atmosphere science out here, and we're moving slow enough and high enough that Roberta will be able to jump out and reset some instruments as well. That cloud problem we're seeing there is something very similar to what we've seen in low Lindor flight and in low Joule flight. But hey, no problem. It disappears pretty quickly as we get closer to the surface. We can use that atmospheric spectrovariometer to get a per biome high atmosphere science on the way down. This descent took quite a while. If you've ever watched the footage of the Huygens probe descending to the surface of Titan, you may have an idea of how long this thing would take to get to Huygen here in Je ne sais quoi. If I remember, the Huygens probe was able to touch down without needing a parachute. And this thing, well, we do have 2 parachutes aboard, but they seemed to be overkill. Look at that, we are still so high up, and yet the atmosphere is right up here. And now we've got a chance to ditch the heat shield. There we go. We are well slow enough that we can ditch that and not have to worry about it ever again. There we go. We're still too high for those Hades explodium-breathing engines to ignite, but that's okay. We've got the explodium intakes going there, and we'll be able to fly this thing pretty much anywhere within a short distance. It might look like a flying car here, but it'll behave a lot more like a flying car the lower we get. Oh boy. Let's bring up a barometer so we can see what we're talking about. Yeah, barely 1 kilopascal right there. It's like 1/100th of an atmosphere. And there go the Hades engines. We'll be able to pretty much land anywhere. I can get a lift to drag of over 1 even this high up. We're starting to approach that really thick cloud layer. There's environmental visual enhancements and scatterer kicking in with our really, really bright orange clouds. It is a very thick cloud layer, much like Eve, but a lot friendlier than Eve, I think. Yeah. Look at that. Now, I see a spot in between that main body of methane and that little pond over there to the right. We'll touch down over there. We'll be able to just get some splashdown science and some landed science. And we're on a border at basically 2 or 3 different biomes right here. It's a great touchdown spot. There's our flying car in action right there. Not a problem. Just for safety's sake, I do deploy the parachutes here. Here we go. And we'll touch down to a very gentle landing. This first landing, I didn't want to take any chances trying to land on those ruggedized wheels. Those are not landing gear, and you can't land too quickly on them. But we can shut them off now. Save your eardrums a bit of trouble there. There we go. Now, there's a piece of music I haven't gotten to hear in a long time. But here's our touchdown on the surface of Huygen. Welcome, ladies. Enjoy your sciencing. I pretty much used the same rover design for Huygen, Ryja, Krell, Aiden, and Talos, and it seemed to work out really well. And there we go. Oh, look at that in the distance. Is that? We'll have to check that out in just a bit. We know they brought over some of the stock artifacts out to here, so maybe we'll be able to find something interesting out that way. Oh, come on, Roberta. There we go. Little indecisive there, eh? How well, we plant the flag a little further away from the rover, get some surface samples there, sure. And flying, look at that low gravity. Just put a couple of wings on her arm so she could flap up to the upper atmosphere, I bet. There we go. Touchdown on Huygen. At least when you're on the surface, this is a very gentle world for our Kerbals and our craft. We got some basic science out here. We got a full science suite here for atmospheric science, just like we had over on Lathe and on Tylo. Not a problem. Now let's go for a dip in that pond over there, just to our right there. We're on the shores. The methane lakes biome is just on the edge of the methane there. So we'll be able to get some landed science and some splashdown science, just like we got at Lathe. Not a problem. There are some steeper shores than this, so I'm glad we landed over here. Don't worry about that temperature there. It says only 141 Kelvin, but as we progress on the surface, it will get a lot colder. And that atmospheric pressure is about 1.5 times Kerbal sea level, so stock craft should work out here. And there we go. So let's reset all the instruments and take a dip. Oh, come on, what are we doing? There we go. I think all of the waters behave the same way in this game. I wouldn't know what a methane ocean would be like to float on. I would imagine that any warm bodies would evaporate this liquid methane pretty quickly. Anyway, back on the surface, let's go investigate that object that we noticed out in the distance. And there it is, just out there. Little white puff of something out there. It turns out to be a copy of the Lathe geysers. And when we do the scan of this, it does come up as a Lathe geyser, complete with the Lathe geyser description. Now, we wouldn't be able to smell anything out here, but oh, let's fix that. Let's try that again. Put it in a different position there, maybe even climb up the edge of that. There we go. That's better. So I'd like to know, in a moment, why are we talking about the terrible smell? I would not remove my helmet out here if I were sitting on the surface of Huygen, or on Titan for that matter. A little further down, we do notice a little speck of something out in the distance. As we shine our headlights on it, it is a very different color, and this is an object that we can pick up. So yeah, we're not going to bother scanning it, but we'll send out Roberta to go out there with the pickaxe and pick this thing up. For the most part, the surface interaction problems have been dealt with, at least for now. There we go, moho stone. Kind of like what we found on Aiden. It's the same color, but the science multiplier should be different. Yeah, look at that, 420 science. Yeah, this would have been some real weathering with this crazy nitrogen methane atmosphere and all the winds going on. Anyway, while they were putzing around on the surface, Chris here was getting into a high polar orbit to look for anomalies on the surface. The first time I went through this, we found an anomaly pretty quickly, but this time we didn't have quite as much luck. So, standard operating procedure here for Chris: go up to a high orbit, do some scans, look for any objects with the Rovemate probe, and report them back to the folks on the surface. Meanwhile, back on the surface, I was having some of the same problems that I had elsewhere, with the rover's pieces getting out of alignment and being kicked out of the ground and other things. I wound up giving up on that and just cheating the craft up to low space, and then cheating it right back down, just to try to sort that out. I suppose I could have turned the craft upside down as well and realigned it with some 5x time warp. That would have worked as well. In fact, it did work the last time I tried it, so I may not need to resort to the cheat menu for future incidents of this. And there we go. I have World Stabilizer uninstalled. It was giving me more problems than it was worth, and Bon Voyage was doing a good job of rotating these craft to go in the right orientation, most of the time anyway. While they were doing that, Chris did find an anomaly on the surface. It was the only one, but while he did that, we're going to send the ladies out to a flight out to the mountains. Now here, that terrain problem is giving us trouble here, but not enough that we can't just take off using our explodium-breathing engines and put this rover into flying rover mode. Again, while the pressure is pretty low at 1.5 atmospheres, the density is well over 5 times that of sea level Kerbal. There's just so much air here and so little gravity that this flying car here is quite possible. And we find a little opening in the mountain biome here to touch down here, and we were able to get some mountain signs and some highland signs. There we go. A little spot between these two mountains, and we touch down and we get some mountain signs. We got Jenny Ann here to repack the parachutes. The only problem was when we took off to go back to the Midlands, I forgot to repack the chutes. And you'll see the end result in that just a bit. There we go, taking off from the mountains. Not a problem. But we try to find some relatively flat land here to touch down on. The stall speed of this craft seemed to be about 60 meters per second, or about 200 kilometers per hour, which is pretty good. These wheels can take that. In fact, their top speed is about 45 meters per second. And come on. Come on! Touchdown! Not bad there, Jenny Ann, not bad at all. And a quick save and a walk away and coming back after a couple of hours fixed the terrain problems for me. So if you do run into this, just take a break for a little while, then come back, and then it seems okay, just like that. We're up in the polar lowlands right now, and where the temperature has dropped down to 87 Kelvin, or about minus 186 C. That's about typical for most of the surface of Huygen. When we drive up out of that, all we had to do was find a nearby ridge and get high enough, and we get to the just the poles. There were also some polar highlands out here that we were able to find with Chris's help from space. There we go, there's that crazy cloud cover there, and Lindor in the background. I was having a hard time trying to navigate to this anomaly. There were too many methane lakes in the way. I had to fight my way around the terrain, and I eventually got down there, but not without some fighting. Eventually, though, we do get out there with Lindor through the crazy clouds, and we do find the object. There it is, one of the random monoliths. I don't bother flying over there, I just take it nice and easy and take a drive over there. This was after taking a break, so the terrain problems seemed to go away. The current Copernicus bleeding edge took care of that problem within reason. There we go. This is Huygen's random monolith. We don't get a science bonus for it, unfortunately. It is cloned from Moho's template after all. And it seems typical of all of the non-stock world random monoliths. We don't get a science boost for any of these. But we can send Roberta up there and plant a flag on it. And there we go, a touchdown. The flag problems we ran into seem to have gone away as well. There we go. Now, the next step is to load all the signs out of those experiment storage units into the Mark 1 cockpit and Mark 1 crew cabin, because part of our staging is going to ditch that. Now, I could not find my way back to the equator very easily, and I thought, well, you know what? I've got so much Delta V on this thing. Let's just take off from here, see if we can't rendezvous with the main mission craft from a fairly wild inclined orbit. I'm just going to go pointing 90 degrees here. Now, I've got this going from when we did our takeoff from Eve, because the atmosphere is just as crazy, even if the gravity is lower. Here we are lining up here. Alrighty. Alright, go for it, ladies. And all we are going to do is just get up to climb speed and then climb straight up. You will see this in just a bit. Those Hades explodium-breathing engines have just enough thrust to weight on this world to do a straight climb. Just make sure we don't hit any rocks on the way up, eh? And liftoff! And then it's just straight up bat out of Huygen mode. When our thrust to weight drops below a certain amount, I will detach the two upper oxidizer tanks and wheels, and we'll ignite that spark liquid fuel engine behind us. There's that crazy cloud layer again. Look at that. Now I don't care what orbit inclination we have after this. As long as we get out of the lower atmosphere, we should be pretty good to go. Look at Lindor in the background, a lot clearer to see when we're above the clouds. Remember, we gotta get above 180 kilometers and our AP is not even at 40 yet. But our atmosphere density has dropped considerably even at this distance. Time to fire the spark and ditch that extra weight that we don't need. And the Hades engines will assist us along the way until they go into air combustion failure, and then we ditch those as well. At which point the reaction wheels can take over for us. Look at that. Just almost straight up. It's only about now we can even think of anything resembling a gravity turn. There go the Hades engines, and here's the rest of the craft that should make it the rest of the way up to orbit. I gotta say, Huygen's low gravity really lends itself well to craft designs like this. You could do the same thing with stock engines, just watch your acceleration on the way up until you get out of the lower atmosphere. We're still flying low at 55 kilometers up, and there's the sun and a blue sunrise. Oh my goodness. Hello sun, it's been a little while since we got to see you. Oh boy, ladies, get out of there. We're still flying low. Oh boy, what altitude is flying high? Oh, we're still flying low, or are we flying high? There we go. Let's get out of here. Now we're flying high at 76 kilometers up. Apoapsis is not out of the atmosphere yet, but we are climbing very, very rapidly. And with the Delta V we've got on this craft, we are pretty much home free. Now, whether we rendezvous with the main mission craft or the main mission craft rendezvous with us, well, that depends on my maneuvering skill here. There we go. 260, which is the same altitude as the main mission craft. Let's see if we can meet up with it. Beautiful. Yeah, we should have enough Delta V and then some to accomplish this. And then we should be able to meet back with the main mission craft in just a bit. That piece of docking port is still hanging out there in low space. We'll take care of that off camera there. It's suborbital, so it'll die eventually. There we go. I don't have maneuver hold on here, but that's okay. Look at that. Almost. A little further. 7, 80, 90, 100, 200. We are back in orbit. Now we can do some adjustments. See if we can't maneuver to align ourselves with the main mission craft. We're pretty close there. There we go. Not bad there, not bad at all. Oh, hurry up, don't miss it. There we go. One last look at this giant orange beach ball of Huygen. I gotta tell ya, it looks pretty deceptive. That atmosphere is much thicker than it seems here on screen. And we finally catch up with the main mission craft and Chris. A very easy rendezvous maneuver, and then Roberta will unload the science, much like we've already done many times. There we go. Welcome back, Roberta. Get that science aboard there and get yourself in that hab. And then take a break. You've earned it. Okay, Jenny Ann's turn. There we go. Get back aboard there, and then we will deorbit the rover to its final resting place on the surface of Huygen. That'll do until the next episode when we head out to Rija. There we go. Until then, folks, I'm not Manly. Fly safe.